You know that feeling, right? The moment your monthly electricity bill shows up and you just kind of brace yourself before you open it. You feel like you've done everything right, turning off lights, being careful. So, why does that number still give you a mini heart attack every single time? It's the big question on everyone's mind. Why does this number just keep going up? It feels like no matter how much you try to conserve, the cost just keeps climbing. It makes you wonder, what am I missing here?
Well, let's really get into it, because the usual answer you hear, oh, it's just rising fuel costs. That's only the very, very tip of the iceberg. The real story, the stuff that's really hitting your wallet, is mostly hidden from plain sight.
So let's start with that official story, the part of the iceberg we can all see. This is the easy explanation, the one that gets talked about all the time, the cost of just generating the electricity in the first place.
Here in India, a massive chunk of our electricity comes from burning coal. I mean, just look at how huge that slice of the pie is. This heavy, heavy reliance on one thing makes our entire power system incredibly sensitive to the price of that single commodity.
And this chart right here shows you exactly why that matters so much. You've got global conflicts, supply chain nightmares, rising import costs. They're all pushing the price of coal higher and higher. That makes the fuel for our power plants more expensive, and guess who ends up paying for it? Yep, that cost gets passed right along to us. And look, that's the story we're always told. It's true, but it's a convenient truth. It's the simple answer that kind of stops us from digging any deeper. But today, we're going below the surface. Okay, now let's actually look at the bill itself, because the real story is buried in the fine print. When you break it down, you realize the cost of fuel is just one of many things you're being charged for.
This is what's so wild. Only one of these things, the energy charge, is for the electricity you actually used. The rest, you've got a fixed charge just for being connected, a wheeling charge for transporting the power, an electricity duty, which is just a state tax, and a fuel surcharge to cover those fuel costs we talked about. Think about it. You're paying multiple fees before you even flip a single switch.
But those hidden charges are really just the beginning. This next part of the story is, honestly, it's pretty shocking. We're going to talk about a gigantic leak in the system where a huge amount of power and your money just vanishes. It has this complicated sounding name, Aggregate Technical and Commercial Losses, or AT&C Losses. But it's actually simple. Technical losses? That's just power that kind of fizzles out from old, inefficient wires. And commercial losses? Well, that's just a polite way of saying power theft. This analogy just hits the nail on the head. This is exactly what's happening with our electricity. Power gets generated, but a big chunk of it never makes it to a paying customer. And the worst part is, the cost of that lost and stolen power doesn't just disappear. Oh no. It gets added right onto the bills of people who actually pay. On average, we're talking about a staggering 20%. Let that sink in for a second. For every 5 units of power that are made, one of them is either lost or stolen. And the cost for that missing unit? It gets split up and tacked onto your bill. You're paying for a system that's just bleeding power. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most controversial piece of the puzzle. Let's talk about political promises. Now, we're not taking any sides here. We're just going to look at the cold, hard financial mechanics of what happens when free power is on the table. So, here's how it usually works. A promise is made for free or subsidized power to certain groups, okay, but the local power company still has to pay its bills, and now it's losing revenue. So, to make up for that loss, they have to raise the price, the tariff, for everybody else. The bottom line is, the cost never really goes away. It just gets transferred onto the bills of other paying customers, like you. So when you put all of these pieces together, you finally start to see why your bill is so high. It's not just one single thing. It's a perfect storm of global prices, local taxes, system failures, and political decisions all hitting you at once. So the next time you look at that number on your bill, just remember what you're really paying for. It's not just the lights you turned on. You're paying for global fuel prices, sure, but you're also paying a bunch of complex state taxes. You're paying for electricity that just leaks out of old wires. They're paying for power that gets stolen. And you're paying to cover the cost of political promises. In the end, it's the honest, paying citizen who ends up subsidizing all the flaws in the system. All of which leaves us with one final, unavoidable question. When you look at all these factors, the hidden charges, the massive losses, the way costs are shifted around, you have to wonder, Is this system fundamentally broken? Is it time we started asking for something better?